What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you my spicy profile for Dark Magician, featuring the Azaminas and of course the Primites. I've got my side deck as well to show you what I ran at locals, and I'll also give you some side decking tips of what I would take out, what I would put in, and what particular matchups I would do that against. So I ran this at my last locals. I ended up facing against Tempai, which is a good, well, I say it was a good learning curve. I pretty much got shifted and then board broken to death. I faced Fire Kings, Yugioh, and Manadiums, so it was a bit of a nice range. One thing that I did find is that everyone was main deck and Droll, which completely sucked, especially with all of the different engines within this deck relatively searching. So you've got like Primites, Lordy Lord, Search Out Raw, Droll, that sucks. Dark Magician, try to work your way off of Illusion of Chaos to get into Rod or Souls, get hit with Droll, that sucks. And then also in the Azamina version as well, you go Deception to add, get Drolled, that sucks. The deck still does perform very, very well. I feel there are a few minor tweaks that I would like to make for this deck to kind of make it a little bit more consistent, and I'll take you through them as I go. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So starting head first with the list, we start off with 2 Dark Magician and 1 Dark Magician Girl. So this was one of the big changes that I made in my previous version, is I actually cut a Dark Magician down. Now I found what I was doing is I was going Lordy Lord into Raw, and then I was getting Dark Magician from the deck, and then I was using the second effect of Lordy Lord to always bring back from the graveyard, rather than actually summoning from the deck. So it worked out really, really nicely for that one. I'm not the fan of Dark Magician Girl, and there's a couple of cards in here that I'm running just because of Dark Magician Girl, and I'll quickly show you what they are. So I'm running the Salvation for Dark Magician Girl, but also for Magician Souls, and I'm also running the combination. Now, straight away, these are 3 cards I would highly consider cutting. The benefit of playing Dark Magician Girl when you're using the Lordy Lord is the idea is that Lordy Lord gets Dark Magician into rotation, and then what you do off your Magician Souls is send the Dark Magician Girl. So then what that's doing is that is automatically setting up a draw 2 off of the back of the Soul Servant, because more times than not, the way that you're playing this deck is you'll go Lordy Lord, get Dark Magician to the board, Souls send Dark Magician Girl, work your way into a Magician's Rod, Magician's Rod get you into Soul Servant, or you hard get access to the Soul Servant, and then what you do is you work your way off of the back of that in order to draw 2, because you'll have Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl in rotation. Honestly, it wasn't worth it for me. I never ever resolved combination. The Salvation, and again, everyone keeps reminding me that this has a QCR. I do have a QCR, I just forget to put it in the deck, which is really stupid. The Magician's Salvation, the idea off of the back of that is you activate it, you get to set your Eternal Soul, and then you can use Magician's Souls to send the Salvation to give you an additional free easy draw. But more times than not, I also saved the Magician's Souls to send other spell cards that maybe I didn't want or didn't need. So straight away, I feel that these 3 cards could be subbed out for something else if you wanted to. The draw 2 is nice, but maybe I'll try it like maybe a Mahard, but I don't know. Then, of course, your main normal summon of the deck is your triple Magician's Rod. Every time I got access to this, straight away my opponent drolled me. So every time I'd go Illusion of Chaos, I've already got Magician Souls in the hand, Illusion of Chaos, get me Rod, they went Droll. And I was like, bro, really? So that did suck. Triple Magician Souls, very, very important, pretty standard. Double Illusion of Chaos, and then double Preparation of Rites. This is the one time where I didn't actually want Preparation of Rites in the deck, and that's just because everyone was on Droll. So, as a first note, this Magician's Combination and Dark Magician Girl were sometimes cards that I would side out going into game 2 and 3, just because I was like, right, I'm going second, Dark Magician Girl's not going to help me too much. I already know that Droll's in people's main deck, so I don't really want to go Preparation of Rites into Illusion of Chaos. Not that it makes much of a difference, because if I go Preparation of Rite into Illusion of Chaos and they Droll me there, it pretty much the exact same outcome if I went Illusion of Chaos, add Souls or Rod, and then I went Droll me there. The only benefit was if I was to go Illusion of Chaos into Souls and they Drolled me, I could still go Souls to get me Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl. So a little bit more of variety there. 1 Timaeus Dragon, obviously the idea is stackable, very easily accessible, and then turns you into a Dragoon or the Dragon Knight, whichever one you need. On 2 Soul Servant, I'm actually highly considering putting this up to 3. This is one of the cards I would like to change. The idea is that I was like, okay, at a 40 card deck, I'm happy with it at 2, but this deck is 45, and I kind of want to hard see the Soul Servant, but it kind of presented me with the same issue throughout this tournament regardless, because it was like, okay, cool, if I would search this off a Rod, or even if I would activate this to stack, the route of play would have been to one-how search out Magician's Souls, and I would still get Drolled. Like, the only way you resolve this is if you hard open up Primite Raw, summon a Dark Magician from the deck so you don't search it. You would then need to go hard open up Soul Servant rather than Rod, because then you would have to go in Magician's Souls, Primite Raw would get you Dark Magician, Souls would send you Dark Magician Girl, and then you need to go, cool, activate Soul Servant, stack, and then banish it to draw 2. So you had to open up Magician Souls, hard open up Magician Souls, hard open up Primite Raw, in order to kind of resolve the draw. So 2 was fine, but I wouldn't be opposed to playing 3 of it. Dark Magical Circle, never made it, never saw it, never used it. Secrets of Dark Magic, we all know why it's in here. Very rarely did I go to it. Like, I used the Azaminas to do what I needed to do, and then more times than not, as I mute my phone, which it should be, more times than not, what I would usually do is I would go down the Azamina route, and as soon as I've made the Azamina route, they'd go draw, and I was like, right, okay, I've got no access to this anyway. But definitely you would keep it in here, no doubt about that. Primite Lordy Lord, this card's crazy for the deck, really, really like it. So obviously the idea is on activation, you add a Primite card. That's the downside, because if your opponent draws you, it sucks. But the second effect I actually used quite a lot. And the reason for that was either to get that normal monster on the board so that I could set up the Imperial Dragon during my opponent's turn, or I'd get that Dark Magician to the board to make a rank 7. That rank 7 then became effective during my opponent's turn, or I'd make a rank 7 that didn't activate, and I didn't worry about the secondary effect to this. Or I just brought back a Dark Magician for Tribute Fodder to get some of my bigger monsters to the board if I needed to, because sometimes you would find your way of not even using your normal summon, as Rod is the only normal summon of the deck. So if your opponent drolled you, you'd go, okay, but I've hard opened up a witch, and I've already hard opened up 2 witches, so I could just Tribute 2 off. And what you do is you turn the Lordy Lord that brings the Dark Magician back in defense, you turn that plus another monster into the witch, which kind of upgrades your attack strengths. I was trying out Primite Raw at 2, and the reason I tried it out at 2 is because it's not something that I wanted to hard open. It's not the end of the world if you do hard open it, it doesn't really stop a huge amount, but the idea is that if you were able to go Lordy Lord into Raw, you're only going to be able to use the effect to get Dark Magician from the deck once, more times than not. Like, unless your opponent completely clears your board, which means they have to kill Eternal Soul, which means you have to see Eternal Soul, or they just need to destroy your entire board, more times than not, what you were doing is you were actually just using it once, and then the second copy's relatively dead in the grind game. And most of the games that I had at the weekend, apart from the Yugioh matchup and the Fire King matchup, were relatively quick-paced, so I didn't need to worry about the secondary one of that. I then went down to the 1 Imperial Dragon and the 1 Drill Beam. I actually found myself siding the Drill Beam out as the first option as well, just because it required a bit more of a setup. So there were times where I'd use a second effect of Lordy Lord to bring back a vanilla so that I had one for the Drill Beam, but usually what you're doing is when you see Lordy Lord, you're going for Raw. Like, that's the first card you're going for. If you've already hard opened up the Raw, then you start to decide, well, is Imperial Dragon better for me if my opponent is on Darks? And if my opponent isn't on Darks, you go for Drill Beam. That's the other way as well, is that it was when I was in the Manadian matchup, when I was in the Fire King matchup and the Tempire matchup, the Imperial Dragon comes out because there's no normal monster that I'm playing that would deal with those particular matchups, which is why you need to rely less on the Dragon, and it's why the Lordy Lord was a much smaller engine. Onto the Azaminas. So for the Azaminas, pretty standard lineup on this one. Triple Diabell Star the Black Witch, triple Wanted Seeker Sinful Spoils, double Deception, and then the 1 Hollowed Azamina. So the idea behind these is if you do hard open up like a second Wanted, you can actually send this off of the back of the Deception. That would then give you the ability to send the Deception later on off of the back of Magician's Souls to give you a free draw. If you open up multiple Wanted or Seeker Sinful Spoils, again, you could do it the other way around, and Magician's Soul sends the Seeker and goes from there. I did find myself actually going down the combo route a lot more using the Rusiliago. And I'll show you that at the end of the video, but the idea is that off of the back of this, what you do is if you don't hard open up the Wanted, but you open up Deception, you work your way Deception, gets you the Hollowed Azamina, send in a Deception, activate the Hollowed Azamina, go in for the Rusiliago. This would then allow you to search out the Wanted. You would then use the Hollowed Azamina to put this back into the extra deck to add this back to your hand, activate the Wanted to get you the Witch, which would then get you access to a Deception, and then you could use the Hollowed Azamina to send the Deception to give you the wherever it may be, the negate in the form of the Sylvie. And the reason you would do that is you get Wanted into rotation, which means Wanted could then put a Deception back and you get a plus draw. So that's literally the only reason you use the Rusiliago right now. But the idea was that you just set yourself up for having that draw, again, without using your normal summon and giving you an Omni negate. It was a little bit greedy, but it is one of them ones that if you get drolled in any point of that, then you can just skip the entire phase and go straight into the Sylvie, and that gives you the protection. You don't have to go to the Rusiliago, and usually that's if you go activate Deception, search out Hollowed Azamina, and they go droll, you go, right, okay, well, when I activate Hollowed Azamina, I'm just going to the Omni negate, I'm not going to the Rusiliago. Then for the hand traps, I went with triple Imperm, triple Ash, and then double Droplet, just because I wanted a card that, or more cards that allow me to go second that didn't rely on my opponent, and then being able to activate something like Forbidden Droplet allow me to put spare Wanteds in the graveyard, spare Witches in the graveyard, spare Dark Magician cards in the graveyard, as well as being able to send spare Primite Lordy Lords and Raws and everything else like that to the graveyard. So then that just gives you the ability to negate a board and build off the back of it. If you're not playing Forbidden Droplet, I would highly advise Dark Rule and No More for the deck as well, well, because you do have quite a few cards that can pick a board apart. You don't need to push for an OTK, but you can OTK very easily through the access code line, which is actually incredibly easy to resolve in this. So for the fusion monsters, let's start off with the Azamina card. So we do play the 1 soul. So the soul is the ability to target and then send a card to the graveyard and then recycle during the standby phase. But obviously it's the strongest one of all of them because your Sylvie is 1900 attack and your Rusiago is only 2k. So this is your aggressor for going second, this is your defender for going first, and this is your consistency card to get you the wanted into rotation for that draw power. The other fusion we play is the 1 Dragoon and the 1 Dragon Knight. Dragon Knight can be quite useful sometimes, especially if I was able to make the Dragon Knight in that Tenpai matchup when they ended up double Imperm and Lightning Stormed me. I had a skill drain set, so this would have been quite nice to protect that back row and then work it from that point on. That would have caused my opponent a lot of issues, but honestly, I didn't get a chance to even make it. And then for the links, so for the links, I've got Link Spider and Umduct. Now, the reason I'm playing both of these is, number one, there's space in the extra deck, but the idea is that during the first time you bring back Dark Magician, which you would get back off of the Primite Raw, is you turn it into Link Spider or Umduct. This gives you an Earth. Then what happens is, as you work your way up and go into Dark the Dark Charmer, take one of your opponent's Dark monsters, and then work your way up into Selene, when Selene brings back Dark Magician again, you turn it into the one that you haven't used yet. So either Link Spider or Umduct. And then that means when you make Access Code is going to end up having a Dark in the graveyard in the form of the Dark Charmer, a Light in Selene, a Wind in the Umduct, and an Earth in Link Spider. Another reason for both of these is it turns your Dark Magician into an effect monster, because annoyingly, your other Link 2 monsters in the form of your IP Masquerena, well, less so IP Masquerena, but your SP Little Knight needs 2 effect monsters. So if you want to make SP Little Knight during your turn, you'd actually need to turn a Dark Magician into a Link Spider to go into SP Little Knight. Otherwise, you turn 2 non-Link monsters into an IP Masquerena and then go into SP during your opponent's turn. The last link I was playing was the Mech Knight Crusader Avramax, because you repeat the exact same process that I showed you for the Selene into Access Code line, but instead if you're going first, you go into Avramax. And what this does is it means your opponent can't just go, cool, get a strong monster on the board, attack the Sylvie. It also gives you the ability to protect your Dark Magician from being destroyed if you're trying to set up the Dragon Banish. So it just gives you a little bit more redirection, protection, and everything else you need in between. Then the 2 XYZs I was playing was the 1 Red Eyes Flare Metal. The reason for this one is you would use Witch and Dark Magician to overlay into this, and the idea was it was a card that would allow me to burn during time if I needed to, but also just be a deterrent that sits on the board that can't be destroyed by card effect while it has materials, and then just start slowly chipping away at my opponent's life points. The last one is Typhoon. Now, obviously the idea behind this was if I wasn't able to break a board, but I was able to keep on going and going and going and going and get a Sylvie set up off of the back of the Azaminas, and then bring back a Dark Magician later on in main phase 2 or whatnot. Yes, of course, Typhoon wouldn't be able to use this effect to bounce, but it would still be on the board as like a semi-skill drain for anything that was stronger. So it really came down to the type of matchup, whether I used this or not. Honestly, what I'm going to look at doing is taking the Typhon out for the Silo Hat Rabbit, but that just gives you more of a better option going first rather than an option going second. Another option you could look at is you could turn your Red Eyes Flare Metal into a Zeus, because obviously as long as a XYZ has attacked that turn, you can make your Red Eyes Flare, which will have 2 materials on it at the time, and go into Zeus with 3 materials. Rather than taking the burn, you just basically go for a board wipe, but that of course will come down to the matchup you're facing. Like if you're against Yugioh and they've got loads of back row set up and Nightmare Pain, you just go, okay, cool. Red Eyes Flare, once I've cleared their monsters off, attack, main phase 2, go into Zeus. Zeus would clear out that entire back row once they start to present monsters to the board. So that's it for the entire extra deck. Before you asked, the sleeves came from Sleeve Chief. I don't know if they have the darks in stock anymore, but I felt that the darks were quite good, or quite representational of this particular build, because obviously the Azaminas are slightly dark, as well as the Dark Magicians in general. For the side deck, I played 2 Bestials. This was just mainly down to the local environment. Honestly, I felt that the more and more, like I was expecting Yugioh at my locals. I definitely wasn't expecting Manadiums. I kind of expected Tenpai, and I kind of expected Fire King, so maybe these didn't need to be in here. And if you're going to take them out, you do have more options for it. That's when you can kind of open up any other particular type of hand track you could play. I'd also consider playing, I'm just trying to get them to the one side, I'd consider playing the Debitors and the Forbidden Droplet. The Debitors is a card that I would consider putting into the main deck, but the issue is, there was a couple of times during testing where I'd open up the Debitors, hard open up the Debitors, but no way of resolving it, and I would also hard open up the Hollowed Azamina with no way of resolving it, so I was like, I kind of don't want to be seeing 2 of the fusion spells. And the benefit that this one has is a quick play to get you into your soul during your opponent's turn, which is great, but it was very, very specific. I was side decking the Drolls, but obviously my locals, everyone was maining it. I then had back row hate in the form of 1 Harpy's Feather Duster and triple Cosmic Cyclone. I then went with Evening Match as my board breaker of choice. And then I also went with double D-Barrier and 1 Skill Drain. The Skill Drain was just, you know, luck of the sack. And honestly, it'd probably be a better third dimensional barrier. But again, the local environment really then dictated what was going to be more effective for me. And obviously some of the decks that came out kind of took me by surprise a little bit, which is why the side deck could probably be tailored a little bit more for the environment. That's probably where D-Barrier might not be as effective. But I knew that D-Barrier would be that out-and-out protector, that out-and-out negate. For Tenpai, which was something that I was worried about. Like, I would need to enter the grind game against Tenpai, especially if they D-shifted me. I think I'll be able to go D-Barrier, hope they can't Synchro OTK me, or they won't be able to Synchro OTK me and that they're not playing the Link OTK, and then I'd be able to kind of come back to my turn and build from there. So that's it for the entire profile. I'll quickly show you, just to visualize the Azamina combo, just so you have a bit of an understanding for it, as it is very specific, and a lot of people do go, like, I was specifically like that when I first saw the combo initially. I was like, or the inclusion of the Rusilago, I was like, why is the Rusilago in there? Like, I don't see where it works. So the idea is you have to hard open up the Deception, which is already relatively specific as it is. So you'd activate the Deception. This would then allow you to tribute a monster from the hand or field to add an Azamina card. So you'd have to tribute any of your other monsters or anything like that. This would then let you get the Hallowed Azamina. You can also hard open up the Witch as well, but again, you'd still need a card to send, and then Witch would get you Deception. The idea is that you've sent a monster, you've got the Hallowed Azamina, but you don't have Wanted in rotation, and you want to replace that card that you've discarded or tributed. So the idea is you'd then activate the Hallowed Azamina. This would then get rid of this, which would then let you summon out the Rusilago, wherever it may be. Your Rusilago would then be able to trigger the effect to add a secret spell from the deck. You'd be able to add the Sinful Spoils. You'd then be able to go add back the Hollowed Azamina to put back the Rusilago. And then what you do is you activate the Hollowed Azamina and you chain Wanted, because then Wanted becomes the Sinful spell that you send off of the back of the Hallowed Azamina. So you'd go, cool, resolve the Wanted, add yourself a Witch. Hollowed Azamina resolve, send in the Sinful Spoils to the graveyard. This would then give you access to your Omni Negate in the form of the Sylvie, and then you've got the ability of the Wanted in the graveyard to be banished, to then put this back to the bottom of the deck and then draw you a random card. So then what you've got is you've got Witch with that card that you need to discard to summon it if you didn't already start with the Witch, but you started with Deception. Plus you'll then be able to have in the rest of your hand the remaining 4 cards that you would have started with. So you've basically given yourself an Omni Negate without using your normal summon and still having a full hand off the back of it. So if you didn't use Witch, you use Witch, you get her to the board. If you did use Witch, all of these cards then become Rods, Souls, Soul Servants, Magician Souls. The only thing that it can't be effective for is if you do have a Raw in this, in a Primite Raw. But if you have a Primite Raw in your opening hand already, you just activate it early doors, get the Dark Magician to the board, and then Dark Magician can then become free send fodder if you need it to as well. So I thought I would visualize that for you. Hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer on how it works, why you would do it as well. Just because getting that draw could be very effective, and it basically allows you to loop back that resource in order to get everything you need going for the deck as well. So that's it for the entire profile. I'm still working on this, still tweaking it, still changing it. I just really like the Azamina engine itself. It's just a shame that it is expensive. That's kind of what puts a lot of people off. But I like how it's fusion based. I like how it's an Omni protection as well. And I love how that it just gives you a bit draw power on top of that. The Primites, I think, are an absolute must for Dark Magician decks right now. I think it's just so good to have that consistency, to give you more access to your Dark Magicians, to give you more access to some of your cards you might want to gain access to, and then work it from there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them as always. But for now, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.